Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Pac-Man Jones with Savannah Seaport News, and today I've been working on this ever since I started my YouTube channel, the Jivens Gang. There's a lot of information, a lot of court documents I had to read. I didn't get any video for this because this case in particular happened in the late 80s, early 90s. So it wasn't really that much video content back then. So I did my best with the pictures. So let's just get to it. Ricky Jivens was born in Savannah, Georgia. He attended high school at Jenkins High School. Like I said, that school was on the east side, and by the time he was in high school, he started selling weed and selling cocaine. And by the time he left high school, about a year afterwards, he started to gain more control of Savannah drug trade. He had nice houses. He had like a chauffeur that was driving cars for him around Savannah, and I mean, he had guys that was on the street that was willing to kill for him. And it was reported that he was involved with at least 15 to 20 homicides between his reign in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He was arrested in, I believe, September the 20th, 1991. He had people on the street killing for him. It was reported that it was an estimated 70% of the drug trade that he owned in the city. So he owned a lot of the areas. I haven't known like what particular areas that he was freaking around, but I mean, if you own 70% of the drug trade in Savannah, I assume that you work in south side, east side, and west. And you got to remember, at the time in the late 1980s, you know, we had that big crack epidemic, and the population of Savannah was changing. The population of Savannah at that time in the late 1980s, early 90s was about 130,000 people. So and at that time, the African American population grew by 4,500 people, but in the 90s, the white population decreased by 13,000 people. So, you know, that caused the city race population to change. So African Americans population at the time was, I believe, at 52%, and the white population was reduced to 38%, and you know, the rest is other. And Ricky Jivens, he had a lot of power in Savannah during those times. He had so many people working on the street, working for him, like working his, you know, drugs, that in order to really get in with his organization, with his gang, you had to shoot or kill somebody to get down, quote unquote. And that was the common way to get in. Well, really, that was the only way to get in. You had to kill somebody to get in. And one of the most famous, most notorious murders that happened was a victim that got killed in Ardsley Park, who was shot dead walking his dog, so that the shooter could earn membership into the gang. And another shooting that happened in the downtown of a downtown restaurant, day manager shot outside the Pink House on Reynolds Square. Those was like the most two notorious murders that was committed by Ricky Jivens. And he just, it also, in the 17 count indictment that I'm about to read to you guys, I'm glad I pulled this information up, because it shows, I mean, it's another indictment, but this one is more detailed, and it has a lot of information, and it has one key guy in this court document that's an informant that I want to bring up to you guys that really put the whole case together. The court document I'm going to read to you guys is the United States of America plaintiff versus Lavon Bazemore, Freddie Hole Jr. Those are the defendants. This was in December 22nd, 1994. This is the appeal document that I've got, and I'm gonna just read most of this verbatim, but I'm gonna try to paraphrase most of it that I can. Freddie Hull Jr. and LaVon Bazemore appealed their convictions and sentences for conspiracy to distribute and possess with the intent to distribute cocaine and for the use of a firearm in furtherance of a drug conspiracy. And Bazemore also appeals his conviction of distributing marijuana. Hull was indicted by the grand jury with 16 other members of the locally notorious Ricky Jivens drug organization in September 1991. It was reputed to be responsible for 1/3 of Savannah's 1991's homicides. Hull eluded arrest and appointed counsel for Bazemore reported a conflict of interest immediately before trial. As a result, Hull and Bazemore were severed from the trial of the first 8 defendants and jointly tried with 3 months later. And basically, Hull was just saying that the evidence that they had of somebody, or like hearsay evidence, wasn't substantial enough. And as I read more into this court document, Jivens used murder as an initiation right into the organization to ensure loyalty and prevent members from turning against other members as a form to get down. You know, like I said earlier, he used murder to let these guys get in a group. And also, if you want to receive any other like big amounts of cocaine, you know, you had to, you know, murder somebody as well. Now, one of the key guys in this indictment, a juvenile witness identified as CJR, that's his name in this indictment, had testified about Hull's membership in the drug gang. CJR identified Hull as a regular member of the Ricky Jivens gang who attended meetings described as planning sessions on the back porch of Jivens' mother house. He testified that although he never saw Jivens deliver cocaine to Hull, CJR did pick up money from Hull that was supposed to be en route to Jivens. And CJR recounted that he also seen Hull with 2 kilos of cocaine in his Wahlberg Street apartment. CJR testified for the government under a immunity arrangement to provide an insider's perspective of the Ricky Jivens organization in chilling detail. CJR admitted smoking crack since the age of 12 and committing 3 murders, including a boyhood friend, to prove his loyalty to the drug gang. At the time of the trial, CJR was 16 years old and had been the right-hand man and muscle for one of Jivens' organizations. CJR also testified that he saw Hull in 1991 with several ounces of cocaine and a 1/4 kilogram of crack on Wahlberg Street. CJR claimed Jivens told him that Hull was instructed to shoot people 3 times in the head for his personal signature. CJR implicated Hull in a drive-by murder of indicted drug dealer Antonio Anderson, aka Antonio Hunter. CJR testified that he also seen Hull and Bazemore shoot Anderson with 2 automatic weapons, a Tec-9 and an AK-47, from a distance of from 10 to 15 feet. This testimony was later impeached by a forensic scientist who was an expert witness of the Georgia State Crime Lab, and they testified that Anderson died as a result from a gunshot wound from a 38 or 357 pistol, not an automatic weapon. Jerome Richardson was a immunized co-conspirator and was called as a witness for the government, and he related his experiences with Ricky Jivens and other gang members. His testimony was corroborated by Jocelyn Hunter, the murder victim of Antonio Anderson's sister and a known drug user who accompanied Ho to his apartment in August 1991 and saw bags of coke, cardboard, and razor blades and shape. CJR's testimony was corroborated by Ricky Jivens in a August 13th, 1991 videotape. Government witness Jerome Richardson also furnished the juries with similar testimony concerning what Ricky Jivens had said to him about Jimbo Ho. Ho's nickname is Jimbo. 1991 conversion to informant status. Richardson testified that Ricky Jivens had told him Jimbo had gotten down, which that means killed someone for the gang. And in August 13, 1991, videotape shows Ricky Jivens stating, Jimbo say, okay, I'm going to handle my business. You know what I'm saying? Jimbo got down, man. Jimbo graduated. This was said by Ricky Jivens. This corroborates Richardson's testimony about Ho. Richardson recounted that Ricky Jivens told him that Jimbo did Antonio Anderson. Richardson further testified that Ricky Jivens told him that Ho taught him how to cook cocaine to transform it to powder hydrochloride to form it to a base or crack form. Jocelyn Hunter testified for the government. She reported that she bought crack from Jimbo Ho. Hunter testified that on the day her brother was murdered, she heard a volley of gunshots and turned and saw Ho in the passenger seat of the car speeding away from Anderson's body. Another government witness, Walter Moore, also placed Ho at the murder of the scene in the front passenger seat of a car matching the general description furnished by Hunter. Police also suggest that Anderson was shot at a close range, at least 6 to 18 inches. And CJR also testified that Anderson was shot at 11 p.m. when the actual time of death was shown by the autopsy report to be hours earlier. Ho claims that the government was unable to present any direct evidence to connect him to the Ricky Jivens organization. He submits that both CJR and Richardson were reciting hearsay information. Ho contends that the government's case hinged upon the testimony of CJR, who was later impeached in full. The government claims that any discrediting of CJR's testimony is strictly limited to the Anderson homicide, about which CJR was not lying but merely mistaken. The government further asserts that Ho's involvement in that slaying was corroborated by 2 independent eyewitnesses, Hunter and Moore. The evidence shows that Ho was a trusted member of the Ricky Jivens drug gang. Also showed that Ho used firearms in furtherance of the conspiracy. CJR testified that Ho was present at planning sessions on the back porch of Ricky Jivens' mother house. This alone suggests that Ho was a trusted confederate of the organization. And in the conclusion, they found that they had enough evidence established that Ho is guilty beyond reasonable doubt, and they found all the evidence for the trial sufficient to support the jury's verdict. And there's another court document, but I'm not going to read that one because it basically says the same information, just has different people involved. Because like I said, it was a 17 count indictment. That was just one court document. But in this other one, it just basically says he was guilty of conducting and continuing a criminal enterprise, guilty of using a firearm during a relationship to a drug trafficking crime, and guilty of a money laundering offense. And also he was guilty of crack distribution, and that resulted in at least 6 slayings. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 5 years and fined $1 million. He also has no chance of parole. And also, further trials would later lead to convictions of at least 2 Savannah police officers for conspiring with the Jivens gang. And I'm gonna read some of his members, what they was charged with as well. Simon Lee Gatson, he was reported enforcer for the Jivens gang. He pleaded guilty in January 1993 using a firearm during a drug trafficking operation. He was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. In November 1998, he confessed to 2 1990 murders. Also, another member, Jermaine Manny Graham, pleaded guilty December 20th, 1991. He was 28 at the time, for his involvement in the scheme, and was sentenced on February 19th, 1992 to 35 years in prison. Another guy, also, this is one of the police officers that I was talking about, Sergeant Joe Harris, 50, a former 22-year Savannah police veteran, was convicted in August 1992 of taking money to protect Jivens and his drug ring. In addition, he was convicted of money laundering, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice by tampering with a federal grand jury witness. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. And another police officer, Corporal James Maxwell, was charged with taking drug money from members of the Jivens gang in return for protection from police investigations. A federal grand jury could not reach a verdict in the case, and in 1992 of August, he returned with a mistrial. The case was later dismissed. And another member that was charged, Robert Muffy Moss Jr., was 27 at the time when he was found guilty in January 1992 on charges that he conspired with Jivens and the others to distribute powder cocaine and crack cocaine between the fall of 1989 and September 1991. He was also convicted of using firearms during the commission of those crimes. He was also given a life sentence without parole, plus 5 years, and fined $250,000. And like I said, I was born in 1992 of January, so I missed all this stuff. So, and Savannah at the time was, like I said, was a different place, different. Savannah, everything was different. Especially when you had the crack cocaine epidemic that came along, that would cause a significant spike in, violent crimes, murders, property damage, just all that stuff that was happening. And Jivens, he had control of a lot of people, a lot of the youth, a lot of the black youth he had a control over. And like I said, you want to get down, you had to kill somebody. You want to get fronted, some work, you had to kill somebody. And even to tell the story, my dad's brother, my uncle, they went to school together in high school, and one of the Jivens gang enforcers, like one of the young guys that went to high school, I believe my uncle had accidentally bumped into him, and my uncle said sorry to the guy, and my uncle, he was at his locker, just pulling his books out, and the next thing you know, he got sucker punched and knocked out by one of the Jivens gang enforcers that was in high school. So I mean, there's stories about Ricky Jivens and his guys putting in work. Even my friend, one of his dad's friends was involved with shootings with Ricky Jivens. So I mean, if you ask the older people about Ricky Jivens, man, they won't tell you anything good. But I mean, his history in Savannah, man. I mean, he has a son as well by the name of Ricky Jivens Jr. I believe he has his own little rap career going. I've heard of him performing downtown, and I'm glad I did this video because Savannah's had its violent last year as well, when we had 53 murders, and this year we're at 41. And when I did my calculations, you know, if we keep the pace, you know, I'm not trying to promote violence or anything, but at the pace that we at, we'll hit 53 murders again, you know, or somewhere. We won't hit 60, but we'll hit somewhere around the 55 mark, because, you know, 41 murders, that's, you divide that, this is September, you know, 9 months, that's 4 homicides a month. That's pretty much a homicide every week. So I don't think Savannah will ever get to 1991 ever again, where we top 60 murders. I mean, this year is pretty bad. A lot of the shootings, a lot of the murders happen days back to back or the same day. So hopefully we don't reach those numbers again. But that's all I have for today, guys. I've been really working on this upload for months, ever since I started, like I said earlier. So this was really taking up all of my time, so now I can upload more of your favorite artists and other neighborhoods and everything else that you like me to do. But that's all I have for today, guys. It's Pac-Man Jones with Savannah Seaport News, and I'm out.